Watch the monkeys play on the bars. Oh dear. Still more monkeys playing on the bars. It's such an intriguing little species. Oops. Come up, nearly there. There's a helicopter even. You see that? What does it say then? Hatching tortoises need to be aware of predators. Their shells are very soft and are small enough to fit in the mouths and beaks of many small animals' birds. They keep themselves hidden under bushes and rocks until it's safe to come out.
But he's been trained, isn't he?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Penguin Pool at Birdworld. My name is Alison. I'm feeding the penguins today. We have George who works here, and following along behind her there is Abigail. Now, Abigail's come to help us feed the penguins today. They are looking quite hungry. They're out here waiting for us. So while they're busy feeding at the front, I'll just tell you a little bit about them. Now, the penguins we have here at Birdworld are called Humboldt penguins, and they're actually found in areas of Chile and Peru in South America, and they are pretty small as penguins go, perhaps smaller than penguins you've seen before, and that's because they're actually part of a very large family. Now, there are 17 different species of penguins altogether, and they do all tend to differ in size, in colouring, in markings, and also the depth that they dive to underwater, so they are all pretty different. However, all these different species of penguins actually live in the southern hemisphere. No penguins are found above the equator, they all live below the equator. As I said, these guys here are found in South America, and you probably think of penguins as normally being found in very cold, icy, snowy places. And they are found in Antarctica, but this isn't always the case. And they're also found in Australia, New Zealand and South Africa, so quite warm countries as well. Now, as you see them wandering about on the land today, up the front here, they are quite clumsy walkers. Once they're in the water, though, they've got very streamlined bodies, and they can actually reach speeds of 20 to 25 miles per hour under the water. So they're pretty speedy little swimmers. And there's actually a few different types of movement you can look out for today. First of all, we've got surface swimming here. There's a few surface swimmers coming around the corner here, and that's a very restful form of movement, and they'll actually do that in the wild when they're looking for fish. They'll bob about on the surface of the ocean. They can then keep an eye on the seabirds and see where they're diving for fish, and it's just a good way to pinpoint food. So once they've spotted the fish, they'll actually use a second form of movement called underwater flying. There's a few underwater flyers at the front there whizzing round. Now, it's called underwater flying because it actually uses exactly the same movement as flight. Now, although penguins don't fly, they are of course birds. And if you look at the penguins, the wing joint, the elbow joint of the wing is actually fused to form a very powerful flipper. And they use this to propel themselves through the water. Unlike us, so when we swim, they don't kick their legs and feet. Instead, these act as a rudder for steering. There's a third form of movement you might see, and they're looking quite excitable today, so you might see some porpoising. This is a very fast swimming movement. They'll skim along the surface of the water and then leap in and out as they go, rather like a dolphin or porpoise would swim. And this just means they can fill their lungs with air as they travel. There's also less resistance near the surface of the water, so it requires less energy to swim like this. And also, if something was chasing the penguin, a predator was chasing them, it's just harder for something to keep track of the bird if they're leaping in and out of the water. So that's porpoising. So these guys are pretty well adapted to the environments in which they live. As I said, they're found in South America, and they actually live on the edge of a desert. So temperatures on land can get very high, it can be quite hot. However, the areas they live in are actually affected by very cold currents that flow from the Antarctic, and this is called the Humboldt Current, hence their name, Humboldt penguins. So they actually have to cope with living with extremes of very hot temperatures on the land, but very cold, icy temperatures in the water. So how do they do this? Well, they keep warm when they're swimming using their plumage. They've got a thick coat of feathers packed closely together, and each feather is quite stiff and it overlaps, and this provides insulation, keeps them warm, and it also keeps them waterproof. Also, during the molting season, the new feathers will actually push the old feathers out, so they're never walking about with just half their plumage. They've got a nice thick coat of feathers all year round. Now, these penguins are also pretty well camouflaged. Looking at them here, they don't really look very well camouflaged in this pool, and black and white may seem a rather strange colour to blend in with the environment. You need to think of the environment they'd be swimming in the wild. They're swimming along through the ocean, and they've got a predator such as a tiger shark, or a killer whale, or a leopard seal swimming along above them. As the predator looks down through the water, that black back of the penguin will actually blend in with the darkness of the ocean floor down below them. Likewise, if something was swimming along underneath the penguin and looking up through the water, then the right underside of the penguin will actually blend in with the brightness of the sky up above. So it's actually quite an effective form of camouflage. Now, they're also very good at catching their food in the wild, catching their fish. Abigail and George are actually feeding the penguins sprats today. In the wild, they would eat a mixture of anchovies, krill, sardine and squid. They've got very sharp beaks, and the beaks are also hard and serrated for catching their fish. They've also got quite a spiky, spiny tongue, and this just means they can hang on to those fish once they've caught them and stop them from escaping. They've also got quite a clever little trick. If you watch, when George or Abigail throws a fish to the penguins, they will actually always turn it around in their beak, and they will always swallow the fish head first, never ever tail first. And that's just because there are scales and spines on the back of the fish. If they would swallow it tail first, they could get caught in their throat. But if they swallow it head first, it just tends to slip down a bit easier, so they'll always spin it round first. Quite a clever little trick. Now, people do often ask us if our penguins have names. They do all have names, all 15 of them. As you can see, they do all look pretty similar, so it can be quite difficult to tell them apart. If you look at the penguins, they've all got black speckles on their white chests, and these are actually unique to each bird, rather like a human fingerprint. So in theory, they can be identified by these speckles. But in practice, when you're trying to identify a bird quickly, it's quite difficult to start counting speckles when they're leaping in and out of the water. So what we've got instead is they've all got these little coloured bands on their flippers, a different colour code for each bird, and we can just identify them quickly and easily. Now, there are a few little characters you can look out for. The little chap in front of Abigail there, we call him Barnaby. He's got a very, very short tail compared with the other penguins. You can see there, he's got a very short tail. He was actually born like this. Doesn't affect him in any way. He's a very agile little chap, always leaping in and out of the water, so he's quite easy to spot there. Now, sadly, these penguins are becoming rather threatened in the wild today, and that's due to activities of man, such as overfishing. Commercial fishing has meant there's a lot of competition for the fish that they eat. Another problem is crude oil spills. Causes a lot of damage to marine birds and animals. They can also get tangled in fishing nets. And another big problem they're facing is guano production. Now, guano is just a posh name for penguin droppings, and in the wild they'd actually like to nest in a deep layer of guano. However, the agriculture industry actually mine this guano to use it as a fertiliser. It makes a very good fertiliser, but the mining of the guano does mean the destruction of penguin habitats, and it does take a long time for them to build up again. So sadly, unless we can make a conscious effort to reduce these hazards that they're facing, the numbers will continue to drop. However, it's not all bad news. We have got a very successful captive breeding programme here at Birdworld. We've actually produced about 300 penguins in the last 10 years. We're really, really pleased with this, and hopefully one day we can start re-releasing some back into the wild. It'd be really good if we could do this at some stage. Give a great big round of applause to Abigail. Has done a fantastic job there of feeding the penguins. Very great. Well done, Abigail. along and watching us feed the penguins today, and hope you have a fantastic day at Bird World. Thank you.
Do we get, so do we have
They're
to
a
have
bit
this
strange, aren't they? They're a bit weird. What's going on? They look like early dinosaurs, don't they? I think she drowned.